Howdy! Welcome to April's channel and my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notifications. Let's get started.
Welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to show you how to make smaller versions of my perfect summer dress. So there's a few different changes to make to create a kid size and a baby size, and I also did the elastic around the neckline differently, so stay tuned to see the changes and let's get started. This is a sample I made for Harper. She's only going to have one row of elastic above her belly instead of 2 rows like mine. And then the rest is pretty much the same as how I made my dress. I did have to raise the length of the bottom 2 tiers because her proportions are a lot smaller. To create her pattern, I marked out a basic square bodice. You can trace a t-shirt if you have one. And then I added about 10 inches to the width, so there's room to gather it with elastic. For Fiona, her bodice is only going to cover the chest, and since she's so small, the rest of the dress will be divided into the 2 skirt tiers. To create the sleeves, I traced one of Harper's t-shirt and slash and spread it to create puffy sleeves. Make sure you check out my original perfect summer dress tutorial for more details on all of these steps. I also just used the same sleeve pattern as Harper's to create Fiona's sleeve. After their first fitting, I made changes to the bodice to fit better. I also had to take in Fiona's sleeve because Harper's sleeve pattern was a little too big on her. And since she's a baby, I'm doing short sleeves for her instead of long. Now that we have the sleeve and bodice pattern ready for the girls, we can cut out 2 of each piece so the arm seam closed and the side seams of the bodice closed. Pin the sleeves to the armhole and sew them together. Next, since Harper is going to have one elastic sewn above her belly, I mark the line on the bodice and stretch and sew the elastic over that line to fit her. Here's how I did the neckline differently than mine, and personally this way is a lot faster and more efficient because we can just stretch and sew the shoulders and neckline all at once instead of first hemming the neckline first like how I did in the perfect summer dress video. Sewing it all at once does get tricky when you get to the corners, so go slow when you get to it. Whatever you decide, both ways work out great. After I stretched and sewed the elastic around the neckline with a basting stitch, I folded over the elastic and hemmed the edge with a straight stitch at 3.5 length. The skirt is very simple. Both of them are gonna have 2 tiers. The first tier will be double the size of the bottom of the bodice, and the second tier will be double the size of the first tier. Gather both skirt layers and then sew the first tier to the bodice. And after the first tier is sewn, go ahead and sew the second tier right sides together to the first tier. Next, stretch and sew some elastic around the bottom of the sleeves to finish it off. For Fiona's dress, I will also be stretching and sewing some elastic to cinch in the waist. Since there's a seam at the waistline, I first base stitch the elastic to the seam allowance. And then flip the seam allowance up and stretch and sew it down to the bodice. Now all that's left to do is hem the bottom of the skirt. And I'm finished. Here is what the final dresses look like. So much for watching, and thank you to Harper and Little Miss Fiona for being my models. And as usual, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.